welcome to AI in Action, how to create content or create and scale content with AI. Jeff, you got the controls. So let's go to the intro. So this is Jeff Coyle, the co-founder and chief strategy officer at MarketMuse. I'm Paul Raitzer, founder and CEO of Marketing AI Institute. But Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself and about MarketMuse, and then we'll kind of get into what this is all about today and the other sessions that are coming up this week.
Sure. So I'm Jeff Coyle. I'm the co-founder and chief strategy officer for MarketMuse. And MarketMuse is a content intelligence platform that sets the standard for content quality. And what that means is we give you insights that evaluate what you should be creating, what you should be updating, but then we take it all the way down to common workflows that burn a lot of clock for writers, for editors, for search engine optimization professionals, and content management professionals, giving them the ability to both influence how much content they create, the quality of that content, and predict the performance before they make those investments.
Thanks. And MarketMuse is actually a technology we use at the Institute. So it's one I'm familiar with. So when you get into talking about like AI tech and people always ask me for examples, right? We do a ton of content creation at the Institute. My agency does a ton of content creation. And so trying to build smarter strategies, create content more efficiently, create it more holistically. So we're, really creating rich content that answers deep questions for people. That's actually tech we're very familiar with because we've been using it for a few years. So this is the series. So AI in Action, we introduced as like an online event series, or webinar series before our Marketing AI conference in 2021. So we actually did this, would have been August or July. I think it was in August of 2021. We did 5 of these in 1 week, actually 6 of them over 2 weeks. But the whole idea was like, everybody always asks, how do we actually get started? Like, what are the use cases we can apply AI for when you're at the very early stage? And so the idea was, well, let's show it, not like in a pitch format, not like Jeff's not here trying to sell you his product. Like, of course, if you're interested, Jeff's not going to turn you away if you want to actually talk to him. But the whole idea was like, let's show the tech at work in an educational format. That's like a product demo, but in education, like, hey, let's stop and talk about how it's actually working here. What is the AI doing that's different from traditional rules-based, technology? And so that's the premise. So we're kicking off today with Jeff and MarketMuse. We're going to have tomorrow. AI advertising is a new platform that's kind of combining a collection of advertising use cases to make advertising more intelligent across the spectrum. Personalized email newsletters from Rasa, super practical use case if you're trying to find like an entry point for AI. And then Kathy and Mike from the Institute are going to do a collection of texts that we actually use at the Institute. And they're going to walk you through almost like day in the life of, our chief growth officer, chief content officer, like what do they do and how do we use AI in our jobs? So those are the 4 this week. If you didn't register for one of them, you only maybe registered for MarketMuse today, but not the other ones, you can still register for the other ones. Don't worry about it. You haven't missed it. Plus, we will make them all on demand. So if you register for them and can't make it, we'll follow up with the on-demand link. I'm going to be here hanging out with Jeff, just asking questions as we're going along. If something jumps up, we will do Q&A at the end. Kathy McPhillips from our team is here as well. If you need any technical help, hit her up in the chat. But other than that, I think, I know I got a little piece for the Macon, but that's it on the AI in Action side. And then Marketing AI conference. We are going to be back in person. This is Jeff in 2019. The beard looks about the same in that one. Your profile picture is the stronger beard, but this one's about the same. This is good. Like you and I don't think we look like we've aged too much in 2 years. We probably both feel like we've aged 20 years since 2019.
That's for sure.
But generally we still look, about the same age. So we will be back. Jeff will be back. He's actually doing a talk at the conference. We haven't announced this yet. We'll be announcing the agenda maybe this week. If I do my job, we might do it this week. It's in the next 2 weeks, we'll be announcing the initial agenda. But Jeff will be doing a talk, how to use AI to improve content efficiency at the conference. There'll be about 30, 40 sessions, 8 main stage sessions. So if you want to be in person, be together in the community, we're going to be in Cleveland, August 3rd to the 5th. You can learn more at macon.ai. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. He's going to do his thing. And like I said, if you have questions throughout, go ahead and send them. Chat, we're going to be here for it. And I'm just going to kind of hang out and listen to Jeff and learn too. So Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, if you're on the fence, go to the show. It's really awesome. Cleveland's great in the summer. And yeah, my session on content efficiency, and I might talk a little bit about content efficiency today, just as a concept, but it really gets into how making better decisions about what content you're creating or what content you're updating improves your, effectively your batting average for content, and how impactful that can be down the funnel of content lifecycle. And good segue for how to create and scale content with artificial intelligence. And this is speaking specifically about lots of different, I call them branches of artificial intelligence. Content, touches a lot of these things. Why we create content, what types of content need to be created, what data do we use to analyze personas, to analyze audiences, and then the actual content itself, the Play-Doh that you use to create that beautiful final draft, right, is things that touch on natural language processing, natural language topic modeling, understanding different branches of ways that you can analyze text and turn it into actionable insights. Because you really don't know what you don't know if you're not analyzing content. You kind of have all these preconceived bias for the content that you're creating. A lot of aspirations, a lot of brainstorming. There's a lot of manual work. In my life, as we know, didn't get into, I've been doing this for about 23 scary years: search engine optimization, content strategy, content creation, lead management, ad server design, search engine design, whatever it is that involves getting people to look at a website and do stuff. But what I found in that time is working with a lot of content teams and editors is that most of the decisions that are made for creating content or updating content come from manual brainstorming, subjective perspectives, or expertise. Of all those things, I really, really love expertise, because expertise you can't get from anywhere else. But the journey for AI on a content team is taking data and turning it into value so that your experts and expertise gets amplified. Restating that, the people on your team that have the actual product expertise, the subject matter expertise, should feel like artificial intelligence is going to make them superhuman, not replace them, because they can't be replaced. That's the value that can't be replaced. So what we're building, and what you're looking to build for your organization with a content strategy, content operations, and execution support, is a situation where people that really know it can get more done more successfully more of the time, and actually have data behind those decisions. They're not getting the traffic they need today. Complete inefficiency for building out content that can be successful in organic search and through omni-channel, through other channels and avenues. And what does that yield? It yields situations where the people who are reading our content might not be a value match with the things that we're selling. And that's a problem with lead quality, lead management, et cetera. So how do you know whether the things that you're creating have the potential to be successful? That's the type of thing that you need to perform prior to even putting pen to paper. And understanding those things will allow you to create more confidently, and allow your team to rally around what you're creating. A lot of people they separate. I've got this content over here, and that's my blog. It's separate. This type of content, you don't want to be in that game. You want to understand how all of those pieces work together to provide whatever it is your KPIs are, whether it is total volume of traffic looking at your site, entrances from a particular channel, whatever the QL definition you have internally in your org, or going down to sale if you're in more of an e-commerce, or if you're publishing for conversions. But you've got to know all of these things with data to be able to really make decisions about what to create and what to update predictively. And I like to put some of these things in here to talk about it, because what type of content should we be creating? What length of content? A lot of people are still doing business on word count, right? I'm buying this many words from my outsourcer. How do you know that that volume is actually connected to the potential of what you're going to create? And imagine you pick the wrong thing to create. Well, you've just wasted all of that money and all of that time. What types of intents are you targeting? Which stages of the buy cycle? What topics do you need to be focused on? And what level of expertise is needed to truly, write it or edit it? All of that information needs to be known for you to have success, to predict, hey, if I need to level up my site on this topic, I need to build a section of my site on this, or I can just knock that out with one page that's really well written. How do you make those decisions for your team? The answer obviously is building out capacity for artificial intelligence to evaluate large scale data so that you can have that at your disposal to say, okay, well, I'm very confident in this investment in content because of A, B, and C. And that A, B, and C takes many, many forms based on the type of business you are. Paul, I just saw you unmute.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to add, just to stress, you used the word predict. And if you're new to this, if this is one of the first times you're attending a session and really starting to learn about AI, one of the things we always stress, and I know Jeff does as well, is AI is about making smarter predictions. Like in essence, that's what machine learning enables. It's what the things that MarkeMuse, every one of these bullet points, ideal structure, target length, multiple types of options, topics. And if you're a content strategist, you're in essence making a prediction every time you decide the length, which questions to answer, what formats to put it in. There are all these like micro predictions that collectively say, what is the search engine going to care about? What is the end reader going to care about? They're all predictions. And so what technology like MarketMuse does is it enables you to make predictions at scale better, faster, cheaper. And like, that's a key thing, is like, you can get lost in all the names and like natural language process, natural language generation, machine learning, like all these terms. A lot of times it just comes back to the tech is trying to help you predict things more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I always like to use other examples of other marketing technology where you go from, and it's one of the steps that I always recommend where artificial intelligence kind of comes into play here, is going through your entire inventory. And I love this graphic. This is the content lifecycle, right? Going through your content process and writing down everything that's just grossly manual, all manual, right? You're making decisions based on whatever, right? Then take a next flow through it and make a list of all the decisions that are made and processes that are influenced by the equivalent of cases or if-thens, right? I'm using a data point that I believe to be predictive. If this is this, then that, right? So make a list of those rules effectively that are in place. And most teams, that's where they stop in content. They believe that it's going to be a great combination of brainstorming and maybe 1 to 2 data points that you think are going to support this. Unfortunately, for 90% or more of teams that you run into, those 2 data points are tremendously flawed. One of them is demand, so search volume, most of the time what they're looking at, which has so many problems. If you want to go read a follow-up here, you can go type in the search volume illusion into Google and go check out an article that we wrote a couple bits ago. But what you want to be focused on is the fact that all that data has value if it's combined with your own successes, if it's combined with predictions on performance, because then you can get into information that gleans predictive next steps. So I know this happens. I know this is likely to have success. I know that if I write this much content, it has a higher percentage to be successful on this topic because of these other data points. I'll use a comparable example because a lot of times the belief that this can happen isn't yet crystal clear with teams. But I'll use an easy example. If everybody's a marketer in the audience, or most of us, we've probably qualified a lead before. So you've said, which leads do we like? I want leads from these industries. So then if a lead comes through and they're not in that industry, they get devalued. That's a rule-based approach. Well, what if you took all the leads that came in and all their information, their demographic profile, and all their user behavior on your site, and you processed all of that, and then you compared it to your actual CRM data? And what if it said that actually people from that industry are good, right? That's what AI can bring. It's the ability to analyze, in our case, all the content you've ever written, all the topics that you care about, all the content that's being written by your competitors, not just your direct competitors, but maybe publisher competitors, maybe, like I said, direct, maybe aggregators, ones that you don't even sell against, but they're competing with you for content. So if you could evaluate all that content to build out predictive profiles of what's likely to be successful, and then look at what you've already created and understand the juxtaposition of those two things. It's just like the day that AI told you that people from that industry might actually have a high likelihood to buy. In our case, people or content about these things written at this length, written at this skill level, has a likelihood of being successful for you. Having that at your disposal is a superpower when you're doing planning, research, and briefing, because you're not guessing anymore and you're not creating if-then statements that might be successful. You're not saying, hey, I like this topic, or, oh, wow, my competitor is writing about this topic, so I'm just going to do what they're doing. That's correlation bias. It's also bias in your brain because you're saying, I'm bringing something to this. What I want is understanding what I should create and being able to predict why and say, wow, I have this much momentum on this topic. Here are other topics that I have missed that are semantically related. Here's the type of content I need to create, and here's the length of that content. Now, if I have that as payload and I can hand that off to my writers and editors, and they're already, they have some level of expertise, but this can coach them to make sure that they don't write anything with blind spots, that gives me an unfair advantage. The second place here in this life cycle, and I'm working my way all the way to the Death Star, as you can see, is what pages should I update and why? Maybe I should update this page because it wasn't as good as my competitors from the first point. It wasn't differentiated. The intent behind this topic has changed. Or I just need to put more points on the board on this concept because I didn't have the authority in the first place when I wrote it. I wrote something thinking I just could knock that out with one page, but I needed to do it with a lot of pages. So no matter where you are leveling this up, the goal is, as Paul jumped to say, to be able to predict that the action I'm going to take or the content motion that I'm going to take is going to be successful, and understand how to put my best foot forward with the article, the content item, or even the section that I'm adding. Make sure I put my best foot forward so it has the highest possible chance of being successful. And I love the example of my first day, right? Not my first day anywhere, but one's first day, right? Brand new blog. I can go write the best article that's ever been written that evaluates the brand new iPhone. Perfect review, breaks down every feature, function, benefit, beautiful photos, beautiful pictures. But if I go put that on paulsblog.com as his first post, it's likely not going to be successful. But if I go throw that same article on a big box retail site or a product review site, it's going to be extremely successful. And why? The why isn't just because he's got a bunch of links. I've got a bunch of links on that big site. It's because I have breadth of coverage, depth of coverage, quality of coverage, because the research that I used to build that review came from a lens of expertise. I've got subject matter expertise. So by piecing together all of that information, I can make justifiable business decisions on content instead of just guessing. And that's when things truly change for teams. Not only does it do that with content efficiencies, which when I say efficiency, I mean more of the content that I'm going to be creating is going to be successful. More higher batting average with content is a good way to think about it. So you got to know what yours is today. So takeaways from today so far, everybody. Process inventory. What's my manual stuff? What's my rule-based stuff, right? Third one, what's my content efficiency? How much content do I create and how much content do I update? And how typically is that successful? So those are your three so far. Number 4 is I want to evaluate my time, the time spent at each stage of the content lifecycle. A lot of teams close their eyes on this one because they're like, I've got outsourcers. I just pay for payload. I just pay for that final copy. Oh yeah? Do you? Okay, what's your hit rate on that content? I love this one, right? 10%? Okay, how much did you pay for that content item? A couple $100, right? Okay, so what's your cost per successful content item? A couple $1,000. Uh-oh, brain explodes, right? And then also, how much time did you spend back and forth, feedback loops, editing loops, right? How much opportunity cost did you lose? Because you could have been publishing at 50% and you're publishing at 10%. The compounding value of search engine optimization, the compounding value of organic traffic, plus your authority isn't growing when you're writing on successful content. So you can improve the time looking at this image significantly. But there's other opportunity cost dynamics at play from making bad decisions, not choosing the right items to create. Worse off, publishing bad content. Publish bad content, it can impact your entire site. If you do things that are tricky or, led by ill-gotten gains approaches of sorts, right? It can actually negatively impact the content that's great. So building content that's equal to or better than all of your competitors every time is possible. It's possible to always have the most differentiated content. As you go, it's possible to know what content to update and why, so that it can be more successful and cut down cost times. So you're actually breaking that triangle. Break the triangle of how much content you need to create, being able to create more. How much does it take per page or per project? Taking that down. And then also overall performance. I saw you unmute, Paul.
Yeah, I love this slide because this is exactly what we tell people. Like, you don't need AI. Like, there's no point where you need to go shopping for AI. Mm-hmm. What you need is smarter tech that makes you more efficient at your job and gives you a greater probability of being successful, whatever your outcome you're targeting is. Mm-hmm. But this is what you should do. Anytime you're looking at a content tool or an ad tool or social media tool that should help you be smarter at your job, mm-hmm. break it down into the steps that are required for you to do your job. Know how much time you're currently spending doing your job, and then look and say, okay, well, at optimal efficiency, once we have this tech and once the AI is doing its thing, how much time are we going to be saving, and is it worth the investment? And then to your point, and what is the chance that the performance is going to actually lift as a result of this technology too? It's like, that is buying AI. You're already buying tech. Right. Is it going to save me time and money? And is it going to give me a greater chance of achieving my goals? Those are the only reasons you would buy smarter tech, or any tech, really.
Exactly. I mean, and the one piece of this that I like to add, there's actually I tried to get this added to this slide, which is a little wizard hat somewhere to put on these processes. It's because you also, in your process evaluation, need to know, do you have internal resources or contractors or consultants that you believe have information that can't be replicated? A lot of times this manifests as editorial leadership or search engine optimization professionals, right? Because you believe for some reason that they have this expertise that can't be replicated in some way. So there's this like wild card. There's this like spirit of magic that's coming out of their brains. It can be magic. Make sure that that's documented in some way, so Johnny, he's our editorial lead. Sometimes he just knows stuff, right? Making sure you integrate that into your workflow. Maybe the stuff that's in John's head, or maybe the stuff that's in, Suzanne, your head SEO's head, can be used to train those machine learning models. You don't know that yet, right? But sometimes their hunches can be worth a lot of value. You want them to feel supported with any artificial intelligence installation or implementation. One example of this that's always a difference maker, it's one of my favorite exciting aha moments, is when someone sees a topic model that's built with artificial intelligence, and that basically says, what does it mean to be an expert on a concept? And they see a topic in that list, and they're like, and they're an expert, right, already, and they're like, oh wow, I would have forgotten that. I wouldn't have included that in this article. I wouldn't have included a section on that, but obviously it's a great fit, because then you realize, oh wow, this is making me better at my job. All right. So it's just about maturity, product maturity. The first time you ever used spell check, right? You thought, this voodoo, it's never going to work. Now imagine not using a spell checker. First time you use Grammarly or Hemingway, this will never make my tone and voice and grammar improve. Now, could you imagine writing content without some support like that? I mean, if you're still writing without spell check and Grammarly, just send me a note and say, Jeff, you're wrong. But I don't understand you at all. And this is just the next tier. It's, why would I write content without someone checking my work for whether it hits on everything that an expert would hit on? It's just,
and that's how we use, I know that's how Mike does a lot with MarketMuse for us, is it's like, right, we may already have a post where it's 1,500 words and we've answered every question we can think of. Right. But then MarketMuse say, hey, you didn't answer these 3 questions. And Mike, and pretty good expert at this stuff, like, yeah, I didn't even think of that, but that makes total sense that we should be addressing that as well. It didn't replace Mike. It just augmented the output that Mike can create.
Well, sometimes it also speaks to intents. And this is after you've made the decision about what you're writing about, but a question might say, oh yeah, well, actually, I can't elegantly answer this question. It would seem tacked on. So maybe I need to write a new article that focuses on that intent and answers that question and then integrate these posts. So it's all about editorial decision making, but it's with all the data. So if I can say, okay, well, I always love when there's topics recommended that are explicit manifestations of intents. And wow, that's a weird way of saying, hey, if your topic model says go write the word Microsoft in this article, it's not saying I need to go add Microsoft in there. It's telling me that people care about brands and people want to know descriptions of companies and maybe products within this space. Those are going to be intents to write about. If it says Albuquerque, right, it's not, hey, I need to really focus on Albuquerque. There's local intent involved in this mix as well, right? So you can not only learn about concepts that you've missed, but also maybe audiences that need to be addressed for you to cover this topic comprehensively. And now backtracking this earlier, before I make the decision, predicting return on investment is the deadly weapon. I mean, this is the difference maker for us. I mean, working with teams. I have a B2B technology company that I like to talk about. Is they had 2 product lines, and they're like, we need to increase leads 30% to each of these product lines in 20x. I won't say what year it was. And we're like, okay, well, to do that effectively with this one topic, you need to update about 60 articles. You need to write about 120 articles. This other one, you can get by with about a third that effort. So what did they do? They changed their entire business strategy to do the easier one because they got the same outputs, right? So being able to predict that, they're like, oh yeah, we'll come back to this other one later, right? We'll focus on that. And then in the meantime, we're gonna get traffic to that other business line through other omni-channel, and then reinvest later. That's what ended up happening.
It's such a practical way to look at it, though, because this is, I mean, Mike and I did this with the Institute. It's like, well, how many posts should we be publishing every year?
Right.
Like every content strategist thinks about that. Is there a way I can achieve the outcome with 25 posts, or do I have to publish 250? Yep. It makes a massive difference on your operations and your talent and like everything trickles. So if you can actually predict that and what forms to publish in, that's what we're all trying to do as content strategists.
That's it. I mean, and it's pretty close. You can really get a sense for, there's a trail, right? It takes time for some of these things to build momentum. There's also ones that already have momentum and you can pick off wins from that power. You also may have a huge gap. Someone from above, your CEO might say, hey, I want to own. I was just speaking with a software company the other day. They're all about this one thing. They made an acquisition. I can't say the words, sorry. They made an acquisition and now they want to be about this other thing. I mean, it's like the perfect business case for MarketMuse. And I'm saying, well, you aren't about that other thing yet. Do you know how much investment in content you need to make to become about that other thing? Not really, right? And so being able to say, yeah, this is a major investment. And here's why. Here's the competitive landscape. Your old topics were easier. You got there quicker. This is going to be a huge investment and a huge lift. You've got to be able to go through that because it's not about, I always use the example, it's bridge content is not about putting 2 things together that don't belong together. It's not about best coffee cups. And I also want to be about beach vacations. It's not about best coffee cups to bring to the beach. That's not how it works. That doesn't tell me that you're an expert on either of those things. And that's not how you marry those things together, right? And that's what you have to learn. And that's with bridging. And that connects very well with this slide because it's about the customer journey. It's about content clusters or topic clusters and saying, I have content that tells the story that I'm an expert for this audience on this concept. I also have related content that illustrates that I know all the ins and outs of a particular concept, right? So I know all the answers that need to be, the questions that need to be answered. I know all the levels of skill that might be included. Do I need a guide for beginners? Do I need a guide for advanced people? Do I need information about this topic from this perspective? And then also from that one, this might be an industry. That might be a particular role or persona. So I can't just get away with some generalist guide CRM. If somebody's coming in to buy CRM for like a specific industry, I'm not really going to have a match with them. Maybe I need industry specific content because that's something that I deliver. So really being able to think critically, not use the old SEO myth of 1 page for each keyword, because by the way, never has worked, never will work. It's a trick made for people who are selling affiliate training guides. But you need to build content that actually appeals to the reader. How do you know what that is? How do you guess? You can do it with a lot of manual labor, and you can guess, based on knowing and doing persona research, or you can have that supplemented by real information that comes from real data, from content that already exists, from language models, and from your existing momentum. Your existing momentum really matters. Your existing topical authority. So basically that says, how much existing power do I have? That breadth of coverage, depth of coverage, quality, comprehensiveness, momentum. And then what does the competitive landscape look like? When you compare those two things, you can be really deadly with your predictions. That might tell you got to update a lot of content. It might tell you your baby's very ugly. I'm very, very sorry, but all the content that you wrote about this topic was very thin, or it's out of date. It's not appealing to today's intents. It can tell you a lot of bad stuff, but it can also tell you a lot of quick wins. What that does is it changes the way your team works. You just said, Paul, we know what our operations need to be. Well, what if y'all weren't fighting about what data points to use? SEO wants to do stuff. Content team wants to do stuff. Editorial wants to do. What if you all got aligned around a very, very common data point or a common concept that's trained with artificial intelligence? That's the cool thing about not having just rules. All of our data can be considered, and it all ties to the data point we all agree on, whether it's leads, whether it's revenue, whether it's RPM, whatever the data point is. Take everybody's inputs into account and apply that to our predictions. Everyone can get together when we use AI. It's the ultimate silo breaker. In our case, we try to rally teams around authority because it's a thing we all want. I want editorial to be able to write whatever they want, as well as strategically things, and have it all be as successful as it can be, right? Everyone can agree on that. SEO, I want to rank as high as we possibly can for all the things we care about. Content marketing, I want to be as efficient as I can be, and I want to be able to put my best foot forward in a differentiated way that tells the story that the marketing team wants to tell. What's the rallying point behind all of those things? It's authority. It's authority on topics. It's subject matter expertise. It's appealing to the buyer journey. It's appealing to everything that connects to all the stuff that our marketing and our materials do. So getting everybody together around one rallying cry can involve a lot of different data points. What it can also do is it can crash silos, crash biases. Nothing's worse than a situation where marketing thinks that they're generating great leads, sales thinks they're bad leads. How common is that? I'd say it's a lot, right? Content's writing stuff that I wouldn't recommend. I'm on marketing, right? I'm an SEO team. Oh, the editors, they just won't listen, right? These are the most common situations that need to be squashed for you to be successful. Unfortunately, what publishers a lot of times do and what content teams do is they're like, I'll just give the writers 2 things to do because I just don't think they can handle all of the data, right? Or, oh man, it's like a political firestorm here. I can't tell them what to do. They'll never listen, right? Don't do any of that. Figure out how to get everybody's inputs into one thing that puts out information and insights that tells the story that we all want to tell, right? If you truly have someone who's writing content that won't listen to anything that anyone else says or any data, they need a new job somewhere else. If they're not going to take the data from your business that everybody else has to work from, they're not valuable unless their expertise is so magnanimous. That's where that wizard's hat comes in. But you've got to figure out how to best integrate that into your team. Them deciding everything that you create or update isn't the best decision, regardless of how much of an expert they are. That was tough talk from Jeff today. Sorry, a little ranty.
No, so we had a few people ask if we could see this thing at work. And I know what we've done before is actually like pulled up the Institute dashboard and actually shown a back end. I'm wondering if it's possible, if you have quick access, if you'd be able to, like, you can show the Institute one, like we don't have to go deep into what the Institute shows, but if people could see what it looks like as we're actually like doing it, like see these different functions, do you think that's something we would be able to pull up?
In this time frame, what I'll do is I can point anyone. We have a video that we've done with the Institute
Yeah.
that walks through the deck. That would be the best case
Okay,
to
cool.
point to that. So yeah, there's a complete walkthrough. It's a little bit of a different narrative where I'm actually walking through how it's set up. It's set up as an on-demand inventory and audit. You can do planning and content briefing, as well as workflows for a research optimization, competitive analysis, internal linking, and questions analysis. It actually walks through each one. So that video, yes, we'll make sure.
So we'll send that link to everybody as well. That has the more detailed walkthrough of the actual tech backend as well.
Oh, and
I know people were asking about that.
Yeah. Please. I'm happy to walk through exactly how it works. Just please shoot me a note, Jeff@MarketMuse.com, and I know we'll get to that at the end. In my conversations and in my value, I want you to see the value before you even see anything, because that's the truth. Because in your case, you might need something a little different. You might need a macro solution because you're an e-commerce provider. You may need a taxonomy based solution. You may need something else, but if you rally around the concepts, you can have the success internally. It might not be with MarketMuse. It may be with, we have to build our own generation solution or something like that, or we have to hobble this together with data. We need a massive keyword database. For example, I sell a massive keyword data. One of our subsidiaries is called GrepWords. We sell large data deliverables of all of our search engine result data, keyword data. One publisher buys 1 billion topics database from us every month, as well as the search results that are associated with that, right? So maybe you need that big data set so you can do your own, roll your own, implement within your own AI solution. So please reach out, go check that video out. I'm happy to illustrate it with your own data too. If you want to just shoot me a note and I'll do it with your own data.
Yeah, I know we've gone through where we'll build like a brief and stuff too, which is again super helpful for everybody to see like it actually, how it develops and how it kind of builds its own, and then like the different elements you can control within it and everything like that. So we'll follow up with more information on that as well, so everybody can look at that.
Excellent, thank you, and thanks for the question. I would love to get into it, but it'll be a super rabbit hole. We'll be here for 4 hours, and I'll be talking details. But there's a great video. I think it's about 20 minutes, so check that out. What you're really trying to get out of that is the why for your content, and that's really one thing. Sometimes when I'm on an elevator and somebody asks me what MarketMuse does, I say we're the why for content, because they get that. It's like, oh yeah, I don't know what my why is for content. We don't have a unified reason why we publish. And these are the most common frameworks for why people create content. Quick wins. What are the content items that if we were to create them or update them today, they would have the most meaningful impact on our business? Do you know that? Most people don't. You should know that. You should know the top 5 articles you need to create next. You may not be able to create them because of issues internally, or I can't get them prioritized. Well, then you need to question, how are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing for goals? I need to increase traffic to this section of my site. I need to increase leads that are of this particular profile, whatever that is, maybe just overall traffic. How do I create to get the most efficient path to that goal? The other one is risks. Risks take the form of many different things. One of them is, most commonly it's actually competitors taking real estate away, real estate in whatever the form is. I have too much fluctuation in my ad buys and their performance, or the costs are going up there. So I need to offset that somehow. I've got competitors publishing on these topics. I've got a new publisher that just bought a couple sites in my industry and they're killing us. I've got a page on my site that gets 40% of my traffic. Oh gosh, by the way, that's a terrible situation. Very common. Typically it manifests as the homepage or a page that just got a lot of traffic and nobody knows why. Those things can be remediated very quickly using artificial intelligence, using data, using natural language processing. You may also be sitting here going, Jeff, I don't get to choose what I write. It gets told to me. Or the editorial calendar is set every year or every quarter or every half a year. I don't get to do that. Well, what artificial intelligence can bring to you is the ability to put your best foot forward with every article that you don't influence the strategy on. So making sure that you're putting out a content item that's beautiful, comprehensive, differentiated every time, so that next time the hat gets passed around for budget, you're like, hey, I listened to exactly what you did and I did this one. Imagine if you gave me the ability to decide what I write about next time. So we have teams that, start with us certainly, and they're, hey, we just want to make our pages as good as possible. Next time around, things, hey, I recognize that our hit rate's still only, 20%. How do I level that up? That's the real difference maker, the hit rate on what you create and what you update. Paul, what were you gonna say?
So when we go into MarketMuse, the way it'll do it is it'll actually identify, like it'll score it out, like take your existing content, it'll score out the things that have the opportunities, in essence, an opportunity score. I forget what you exactly call it.
Yeah, we have a competitive advantage.
What's that?
Competitive advantage, topical authority, and then a personalized difficulty metric. And so that's basically, it's the only in-market metric to decide how hard will it be for us to perform with content. And that's this is our unique value that we use.
Yeah, and so that's like when we do it, like when Mike's using it for us, like he'll actually go in there, look at those scores, and then he'll sort like descending order in terms of the existing content. So our republishing strategy at the Institute is in large part driven by the domain potential, like by tying it to our specific domain, the potential we have to actually republish something and enrich that piece of content. And then in Markets will actually show us like what else to add to that piece of content. And then that's actually how we go through and do our republishing stuff, is based on that kind of information.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, updating content is your fastest path to quick wins. And using some basic frameworks for updating, you can have some really quick wins quickly. So what pages should you update? How to actually make them better, make them differentiated. I've got some examples of use cases in here. I'm not going to run through all of them in detail, but just taking down the costs, the human costs, taking down the time spent allows you to get more done and be more successful. Also making sure that we understand this works for everybody who cares about content, regardless of the types of companies that you're working with. We have a world where people perceive things that look easy as being easy or as being simple. And that's something where, not all lists of words to include in your article are created equal, right? Don't just rely on, and in this case, they were relying on data about the top 5 ranking pages to analyze and look at things like keyword density and co-occurrence. It can cause tremendous negative impacts if you're copying your idols, if your idols are very powerful. So don't do that. If you've been advised to, look at and try to do what Amazon's doing, try to do what large 3-letter publishing groups are doing, and you're not at that level, you're trying to play chess against, 4D chess players. You're likely going to cause problems for your business if you're not doing this with predictive data. If you're just doing this by copying people and trying to do things that are derivative, it's going to have a meaningful negative impact. So many of my clients come to me after having tried other things and failed. Not only that, it's negatively impacted them, and it's almost a remediation. Sometimes it's just going to be a big uphill climb for you to get meaningful output of content. But you got to build that business case internally, make the right level of investment. And if you have anyone internally who's saying, maybe this isn't fit for us, or maybe content isn't our answer, you've got a problem too, because that typically lends itself to the fact that there's some specific biases in your organization. I love this example as well because it's one we can all connect with. Mid-sized, small team, really manual tasks for keyword research, competitive analysis, manual on keyword research, manual on brief development. First of all, if you're not creating briefs at all, if you're just sending a word to a outsourcer, adopt some sort of manual process, but recognize that the triangle can all be broken. Number of content items, number of motions, because it can be updates, how successful each one is, and then the time per page, time per content item, time per word you can even get down to if you're being really efficient.
When you talk about briefs, can you explain how the AI creates the brief? Because I know that's one of the things that we've used it for, where you'll actually go in and pick a topic and then it'll actually generate, sort of a draft, but it'll actually say, here's the questions asked, here's what you need to include within it. So can you talk a little bit more about the brief and how the AI piece works of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the goal in a briefing process is to understand all of the concepts, the kind of ammunition that a writer might use that would be a great point of reference while they're writing. The three pieces of that I like to talk about is structure, topic data, topic modeling data, or AI, the data from AI, and then the competitive references. So what are some ideas for structure of this piece, right? What are the sections that I might, by looking at either topic modeling data or competitive data, I might say, okay, I do want a section of this piece to be about this. So I'm constructing that outline. Now, what information needs to be within each section? Typically, that's going to manifest as what questions need to be elegantly answered within this section, what topics need to be included, and what recommended internal or external links should be included. So what MarketMuse will do is allow you to build your own outline using 2 points of data, like I mentioned, my stuff as well as MarketMuse AI, and then construct kind of the frame, the scaffolding, and then build that brief. The brief is going to give you a recommended structure. The brief is going to fill out that recommended structure with topics, concepts, links that one should consider so that you have a single source of truth for the writer. That single source of truth for the writer then estimates how the length, the score in our case, which is a level of comprehensiveness, as well as a possible way this could be approached. It's not saying, hey, you are rigidly constricted to doing this. It's giving you just, the absolute avoidance of writer's block, because it's giving you a framework that will work, but it also provides the data. So the brief is associated with, here was the competitive landscape. Here was the topic models used. Here's the research that was used. Here's the competitive landscape, so that, hey, maybe I'm writing this and I can't really see where the brief was going. I need a little bit more coaching there. Okay, click. Oh, here's some ways that I can make this work for my editorial sensibilities. Or I want to look at this topic model. I just don't like this section. Is there another way I can do it? Well, I can go back and reference. Basically, it's making it so that your writers have a single source of truth for everything they would need that they can apply their subject matter expertise to. Like, it would be a beautiful thing if your writer had the expertise, looked at the brief, and can instantly construct something that's going to be successful, and that's the dream. But in reality, what you have is people that maybe aren't experts. So this is acting as teaching as well as structure, or they do still hit a few issues throughout the way. How can they remediate without having to do manual research that's coming from bad places? The joke I always say is, why would we expect a beautiful writer, a great writer who can construct great narratives, to be experts at search engine optimization, or to be research scientists, keyword research scientists? Why would you do that? That's where it's it's like asking every chef if they can also farm, right? It's not the same thing. It's not the same skill set. So why are we mandated? Why do we want this SEO, this outsourced writer, to give us quote unquote SEO'd content? What that typically is going to mean is poorly optimized content, lower quality, because they used search engine optimization data that wasn't focused on quality and comprehensiveness. So overall, one thing I like to say is MarketMuse, it's like, let your writers write. Let them write and be amplified by the data. Let them build a beautiful narrative, focus on production value. And if it complies, if it's within the structure, like that single source of truth that brief provides, you're going to be successful. They're going to have spent, I would rather give them 2 more hours back to construct a beautiful story that's woven into the fabric of this piece. If it still complies with that brief, then have them spend that time doing their own keyword research. I would rather do that than have an SEO team doing this bulk keyword research and filling out some sort of spreadsheet that says, make sure you pepper in this word, right? Right? None of those things are going to come into an outcome where your writer feels really, really good, excited, confident, and they're ready to write their next piece, right?
Let's use a specific example. So someone's got this question from in. Yeah. Somebody has a white paper, a research paper they're doing, or a blog. It could be a blog post, whatever. Well, let's say in this case, it's a 5,000 word research paper, and they've already spent a bunch of time creating it and editing it, can they use MarketMuse and or just AI technology to enrich that piece before they go to publish? So see, okay, can AI actually help me make sure I covered all the relevant topics? Can I enter this piece of content into the engine and have it tell me what else I should be thinking about? So if someone's in that instance, how would they use the technology?
You're my dream right there. So in my career from 99, 2000, all the way till 2015, I heavily focused on white papers, content upgrades, or what they were lovingly referred to before, which was targeted downloads. And yes, ebook, gated content improvements, any content improvements, this can be done. There's multiple processes. You can look at a page from the lens of any topic. So you can look at a page for the same text in draft form, not on the web. You can look at the whole text and see how it complies with one topic, then another one, then another one. So you can actually walk through all the concepts that you care about this article being about and grade it. So one page can be graded on 10 different topics. It's real good on this. It's not so good on this. It covers podcast microphones. It's not a lot about kitty cats, right? And that's what basically MarketMuse, you can do that. Any sort of NLP or topic modeling technology, you'll be able to evaluate the same text. What I would recommend for your specific use case is for you to break down the piece and break it down into chunks and evaluate each chunk of that with its own set, and then also evaluate the whole thing. It's going to give you so many opportunities for expansion, ideas for new intents to target, and it's going to leave you in a spot where that vehicle, that material that you're building is going to be more robust and doesn't have any blind spots. On the flip side, this is bonus. This is worth the price of admission for today. On the flip side, many to one is the thing you want to be thinking about if you're an ebook creator, if you're a book creator, if you're a white paper creator. And many represents how many ways people can find this document. Not just about one. You don't want one abstract page for one white paper. You don't want one landing page for one white paper. Break down all the value that's inside this white paper, all the topics that it's covered. Break down all the people you're approaching. And that's a massive scale combinatorics problem for you to be able to create.
Massive scale what?
Combinatorics problem. So basically you can combinations, permutations, basically if it covers CRM for breweries,
gotcha.
If it also covers CRM for sewing, for sewing machinists, right? Make sure you've got a way for the person to find their path to your article with the value that's in the white paper. So let's say section 5 is about call center management, but your white paper is called the basics of CRM, right? No one's going to find it on call center management unless you tell them there's stuff about call center management basics in there as well.
So you're having a landing page for call center,
or a basics collection in this case, right? Why not put together a topic cluster on basics of CRM and have every page lead to that white paper? So right. Your payload, when you build something that's beautiful, I've taken 200-page books and built 1,000-page websites about them. Okay, that's the mindset. If you're investing tens of thousands of dollars on a white paper, first of all, optimize that white paper. Go from 5,000 to 10,000 words. Make sure it covers the whole funnel. Make sure it covers all the expertise areas. But then break that piece down. Make sure it's represented really well. Nothing's worse than spending those tens, 20s, 30s to thousands of dollars on that white paper, and then it has one abstract, and that abstract is not optimized, and there's no way to get to it. Same thing goes for webinars, podcasts, screencasts, things like this. Use your transcripts. It's called rich media optimization in most cases, but get your gated content into content that people can see that provides a path to that gated content. So in all those workflows, we amplify.
I had a question about content audits, and I know this is a big piece that you enable, and we've used it before, but so if someone, let's say they've got 300 posts on their site, maybe they look at page views, maybe entrance points, maybe it's just some basic fundamental metrics they're looking at of how the site content's performing. how can AI enrich what a content audit can be and what you can get out of doing it?
Yeah, this is my goal of making MarketMuse, basically, is to make sure that, we rid the world of bad content as one. But the other one is we fast track content inventories and content audit processes that are painful. They're not predictive. The types of information that you're looking for. First of all, if you're just looking at traffic to make decisions about what you keep and delete, biggest mistake in all of content these days. The person who's selling you that process,
I've seen that at my age. Like we'll have, you mentioned this earlier, but we had like a client that, they were paying us good money and their traffic was soaring. But then when we dug in, we realized it was like 2 blog posts that had no real connection to the outcomes of their business.
Right.
So in reality, it wasn't actually, it was still working,
right.
But certainly if we just left the high level metrics of page views, it would look like we were superstars, and we weren't yet in that case. And we were the ones that brought to the attention, like, hey, like it's working, but these aren't, these are great traffic drivers. They're not business drivers. And so what we need is more business drivers.
Exactly. And I have a video, which I'll share with you, Paul. I think it's the most common gaps in content teams. But one of them is not, when you're doing your audit, you're not looking at it at the page level, group level, on topic cluster or group level, as well as the entire site. A lot of teams, they'll look at the entire site and then at the page level to make decisions. So you've got to also be able to look at it in groups, because collections of content move together as like a blob. So they go up and down as a blob. Articles, support pages, they connect to your main pages. They provide infrastructure or foundation. And so when you delete pages from that, imagine it's you're taking a full mouth with all the teeth and you're pulling teeth out of that mouth, right? Or maybe you never had a jaw in the first place because you didn't build that infrastructure, building content, those comprehensive guides, those comprehensive cross-buyer journey content items. So just be thinking about that. How does MarketMuse amplify those processes? We're giving you insights as to how much power, how much authority, how much momentum, how well do those pages cover the topics that they're focused on, not just traffic. So you're getting traffic, you're getting, are these great pages? Is this as good as this page could have done based on the topics it was covering? Well, that's a powerful page, even if that number's small, because it can provide infrastructure and support for other pages as well. It can also provide insights as to what pages need to be updated and how much upside potential there is for those pages. And that's part of that auditing process. Keep, improve, kill is typically an output of a inventory. But the reasons why people get there, oh my gosh, are so flawed. There's so few people who do inventorying very well.
I think it's very intensive and manual to do it well without. We're at the top of the hour, so I want to make sure we get everybody a wrap up here. But thank you again for everybody for joining us. Jeff, thank you as always for the insights. We'll follow up with information and send everybody links to check out the behind the scenes stuff with MarketMuse as well. And then tomorrow we got AI advertising. It's gonna be a walkthrough of their platform. Actually taking a look at everything under the hood. So that'll be cool if you're in the advertising space looking for technology there and wanting to understand it better. But Jeff, thanks again. This has been AI in Action, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Happy Valentine's Day, Kathy and Paul. And Mike.
All right, Jeff.
See ya.
Thanks again. We'll talk to everybody soon.